Hello, my name is Natalie and I'm the Good Shepherd here on our small hobby farm in central North Carolina. And I have been on quite a journey of continued unknowing yet knowing awareness of the ways that heaven works with really all of life, not just me, myself, and I find it fascinating all the places that heaven continues to take me, Natalie, the Good Shepherd, to. While living this life of solitude, I couldn't delight more than in sharing a rereading for my own self to permeate within my own being further the beautiful notions shared in such books. Today, I'm going to be reading Chapter 7, from Final Gifts by Maggie Callanan. This is a book written by hospice workers back in 1992, I believe. So hospice was fairly, kind of merging into our now around every street corner reality. Wow, right? The stories are timeless, and this is all stories, individual stories shared by the hospice workers, which helps to further for anybody who goes along with reading the book or hearing the audiobook, to help you understand, listen, when somebody's dying, you really just gotta understand. All right, so I have not let any of my flock out today. Well, I did let my front birds out, but not my back birds. It's too wet, it's pouring rain, it's cold. I'm not letting my sheep out today. Oh no. Not in this weather. It's too much of a risk of injury, slipping, breaking a leg. These are very real risks, and as the Good Shepherd, I'm not willing to take. So I just gave them a whole scoop from this little cup here. It was filled with horse oats balls, little treats, with some Honey Nut Cheerios and a cut up apple, some baking soda for their digestive system, and a couple peppermints cut up. All right, let's dive into Chapter 7, Final Gifts. Being in the presence of someone not alive. I'm not alone. This is going to be good. The most prevalent theme in nearing death awareness seems to be the presence of someone not alive. The timing varies. The experience can happen hours or days, or sometimes weeks before the actual death. Dying people often interact with someone invisible to others, talking to them, smiling, or nodding at them. Sometimes more than one invisible person is involved. I'm going to pause right here because these are things that happen to me, and I'm not dying. These are things that have happened to me my entire life while being somebody who I don't consider myself, I'm a messenger. So many of these near-death awareness experiences that I continue to read about, as well as so many of the near-death experiences where people do visit heaven and do see things that nobody else sees, and everybody else thinks they're hallucinating and they need drugs, they need to be sedated and all this kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, the different ends of the spectrum, because it's what happens when these people are dying, and they don't need that ruckus at that point in their life, Nor do we need it at any other point in our life when we're not crazy and what we're experiencing is real. I find it all fascinating, all of this, because all these stories make complete, beyond sense to me of my mind and understanding. I'm like, whoa, my soul remembers. All right, our souls do remember everything. Dying people often interact with someone invisible to others, talking to them, smiling, or nodding at them. Sometimes more than one invisible person is involved. The unseen person's identity often is clear to the dying. Centrally, they recognize someone generally significant from their lives. Parent, spouse, sibling, friend, who is already dead. There is often a sense of pleasure, even of joyful reunion in seeing that person again. Some see religious figures, angels, perhaps, or spirits. Even when people don't recognize the figure they're seeing, they don't appear upset or frightened. Most accept these other presences without question. Professional background and training is not a requirement for listening to and understanding these special messages. Because family and friends know intimately a person's personality and life experience, they are often best qualified to find hidden messages. A friend from New England told us the following story about Steve. A sharp young man with a well-developed sense of humor, Steve was the youngest in a large, fun-loving Boston family. Until he started his professional career, each summer was spent at the family's beach house on Cape Cod. There, he became fast friends with Ralph, his next-door neighbor, whose family came each summer from Ohio. Both were avid swimmers. Steve's mother called them the devilish duo, as their summers were full of activity and pranks. Both boys graduated from college and established themselves in good careers, but sadly, that was the end of their carefree summers together. They rarely got to see each other, and apart from Christmas cards, didn't correspond. A tragic automobile accident left Steve paralyzed from the neck down at age 27. After he had spent many months in the hospital, then more in a rehabilitation facility, his family decided to try to care for him at home, but within 2 months became exhausted by his 24-hour needs. With heavy hearts and a terrible sense of failure, they placed him in a nursing home. Through all of this, Steve hadn't lost his sense of humor. Despite being unable to do anything for himself, he threatened to run away if the nurses didn't spoil him. But it was easy to spoil Steve, one nurse told his mother. He liked to be in his wheelchair in the hall so he could be in the middle of everything. He was such a nut. He kept us all laughing. When one of the patients was upset or depressed, we'd push Steve in to visit, and he was so good with the new patients, we called him the welcome wagon man. Unfortunately, as is common with quadriplegics like Steve, pneumonia developed, which didn't respond to treatment. Steve died. His family was devastated, and a wave of grief rippled through the nursing home. Weeks later, a letter arrived with an Ohio postmark. The correspondent identified herself as Ralph's widow. She was writing to say that Ralph had died recently of cancer. Ralph hadn't known of Steve's paralysis or death. However, in the last few weeks before he died, Ralph began to have visions. Initially, his wife dismissed it as confusion. Just before he died and just after Steve had died, Ralph sat up. "Oh, look," he said excitedly. "Here comes Steve. He's come to take me swimming." Steve's family took great comfort. I just got goosebumps. Steve's family took great comfort in that letter and the thought that somewhere Steve was whole again, doing what he loved. "The devilish duo are up to their old pranks again," Steve's mother said, and Ralph's widow took comfort in knowing that her husband's boyhood friend had truly come for him. He hadn't died alone. It's interesting to note that this story reaffirms what has been reported in other literature, the belief that in the next life, we are whole and perfect, regardless of our physical limitations or losses in this life. Moving on to Fred. Fred, his wife Anne, and their only child Ruth were a close family. Anne and Fred were in their 80s. Ruth, 47, lived with them. Fred was dying of prostate cancer that had spread to his bones and lungs. Despite her age, Anne was able to take care of him at home with a great deal of assistance from Ruth. Fred was mentally alert, but his body was failing. He continued to live longer than seemed possible. This was very hard on Anne. She realized Fred was ready to die and couldn't understand why he didn't die. Right? It also was hard on Ruth. Besides feeling sad that her father was so ill, she worried about how long she and her mother could continue to take care of him. One day I asked Anne if she thought Fred might be hanging on because he was worried about how she'd manage without him. "That's very likely," Anne said. "How do you feel about discussing this with him?" I asked. "It makes sense to me," Anne said, "but I don't know what to say. Would you come and help me?" Anne called Ruth and we went into the bedroom. They sat on either side of Fred, holding hands with one another and with him. "Fred, are you afraid of dying?" Anne asked. "No," he said. "Are you worried about anything?" "I'm worried about how you'll get by after I'm gone," he said. He tried to smile at her, but his eyes were anxious. "I'm so cold. I don't know. The temperature just dropped. Is there spirit here with me right now?" To me, I don't need to ask because there's always spirit with me, and the temperature really did just drop. I'm talking about 10 degrees. "Are you worried about anything?" "Yes, I'm worried about how you'll get by after I'm gone," he said. He tried to smile at her, but his eyes were anxious. "Now, don't be afraid to go," Anne said. "I'm going to miss you terribly, but I will be all right. And you know it won't be long before I'll be joining you." For more than an hour, the three sat, speaking of many things. They talked of Anne and Fred's lives together, how they'd met on the beach and fallen in love, how Anne had converted to Fred's faith, Judaism, and how important their religion had been through the years. They talked of the joy they'd experienced raising Ruth and the love all three shared. Interspersed among these tender reminiscences were Fred's... I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm so cold. They talked of the joy they'd experienced raising Ruth and the love all three shared. Interspersed among these tender reminiscences were Fred's practical directions to Anne about how she should take care of things and get on with her life after he died. At one point, Fred sat up and waved his hand excitedly as if brushing away an interruption. Periodically, he'd break off the conversation to look across the room as if seeing someone we could not see. Once he turned his head again and said impatiently, "Would you wait? I'm not ready yet." I love this. I love to hear this. I mean, I can't explain it. I love to be able to read it because, again, I talk to heaven every day. Beyond angels, I talk to God. I talk to Jesus. I'm not the only one in this world who does, you know? This is fascinating to me. Entirely. It helps me make further sense of my own existence. It helps me further understand life. At one point, Fred sat up and waved his hand excitedly, as if brushing away an interruption. Periodically, he'd break off the conversation to look across the room, as if seeing someone we could not see. Once, he turned his head again and said impatiently, "Would you wait? I'm not ready yet." Soon after, having talked of his concern for Anne, given her advice, and listened to her reassurances that she'd manage without him, Fred kissed Anne and Ruth goodbye, leaned back against the pillow, took a few quiet breaths, and died. It is up to us, you know. This is me, Natalie, right now. It is up to us to say, literally say, no matter how much we don't want to say it, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. Oh, you know I'm going to be heartbroken, soul crushed. My life will not be the same ever, but oh, good God knows I cannot wait till we meet again. I love you. Whatever words you want to say, you have to do this. I've seen this my entire life with all of my animals that wait, hang on, suffering. Because they don't know and they can't figure out how to ask. Will you be okay? That's what they want to know. Whoa. One day I asked Anne if she thought Fred might be hanging on. Oh, wait. Whoa, where am I here? I got carried away there. Fred did not say in so many words, "There are others in the room," but he certainly behaved as if that were the case. His manner implied that he knew who they were, and that he was neither surprised nor frightened, only impatient, as if they were trying to rush him. I love this because that's how I feel in life, rushed all the time. I bet it's going to be the same. That gives me a smiling vision of another positive, you know, something to permeate within my own being, to think of about dying. I'm going to be rushed, hey, even to die. Neither were Anne and Ruth startled by Fred's gestures and statements. They assumed he was talking with people he'd loved who would be accompanying him on his journey. Very often, family and friends don't know who the dying person is seeing because they don't ask. Sometimes the one dying doesn't know either, but doesn't seem to find this distressing. Moving on to Martha. Wow, Fred. Martha was in her early 60s, dying of uterine cancer, which had spread throughout her pelvis. A widow, she'd lived for many years with her daughter and family. Martha's experience with unseen people was not very dramatic, but her reaction was typical. She wasn't at all surprised or upset by it, and was even able to express her pleasure at seeing what no one else could see. Several weeks before she died, Martha said to me, "Do you know who the little girl is?" "Which little girl?" I asked. "You know, the one who comes to see me," she said, "the one the others can't see." Martha described several visitors unseen by others. I'm going to pause right here because, I have to mention here also, my mother is alive and she's well, and I don't foresee my mother dying anytime in the near future. She's had some health issues, and yet my mother, for the past several years now, this is what I mean about dying. We're dying from the moment we're born. It's not that we're like living our life, we're dying. Like we're dying from the moment we're born. It's like we're staying alive to to some extent. So my mother has had all of these things, and they're like, the doctors are like, hallucinations, it's a side effect of the drugs, or whatever. And I'm like, Mom, listen, stick with me, Ma. What you're experiencing is a gift. To be able to experience, Mom, in your lifetime in a lucid, sane, clear-minded, aware, knowing, yet bizarre, unusual, and definitely inexplainable way. I continue to share with my mom she's blessed to be able to live her life much like me, Alice in Wonderland, except her name's Callanan, so Caroline in Wonderland. Too many people on the outskirts will, have their perceptions of such journeys and adventures being, Alice in Wonderland. I heard the author of that was on acid. Well, what I'm getting at, it's not all about when we die that we begin to see, or can begin to see, or do begin to see, feel, hear, sense, taste, touch in different ways. It all depends on how much we yearn to focus on ourselves and figuring out how to align our three entities like a pole. I call it my equestrian, abs to core, tall. It's not about confident, and yet it is. It's about being aware. It's about being focused. It's about taking care of yourself. The other day I was walking around and I'll go, oh my God, I think I walk like Sasquatch. So I added to my venue of onward, upward, Good Shepherd, onward, upward, upright. And now I'm walking with more focus, which is going to maybe it'll help my bum get a little bit bigger. I don't know. Okay. Martha described several visitors unseen by others. She knew most of them, her parents and sisters, all of whom were dead, but couldn't identify a child who appeared with them. That didn't bother her. Don't worry, she told me. I'll figure it out before I go, or I'll find out when I get there. Have you seen them? No, I haven't, I said, but I believe that you do. Are they here now? They left a little while ago, Martha said. They don't stay all the time. They just come and go. What is it like when they're here? I asked. Well, sometimes we talk, but usually I just know that they're here, Martha said. I know that they love me. and that they'll be here with me when it's time. When it's time? When I die, Martha said, matter-of-factly. In most cases, the people seen are dead relatives or friends. But sometimes people will tell of seeing an angel or God or some other religious figure. One man said he'd seen the Lord's face. Another said there was an angel standing by my bed. Neither of them, nor any of the other people who reported seeing these spiritual beings, were upset. They usually were calm as they talked about it and seemed comforted and more peaceful in the presence of their invisible visitors. We wondered if people spoke about spiritual or religious beings because they were conditioned to expect them by their religious beliefs, particularly if the person believed in a life after death. We also were concerned that we might be projecting our own beliefs and expectations onto these situations. Because of our concerns, we were particularly interested in the following situation with Angela. Oh boy, Angela. Angela was a delightful musician dying of melanoma at 25. When she entered the hospice inpatient unit, her parents, 3 younger brothers, and several close friends seemed to move in with her. Her parents took turns spending the night in her room. During the day, a small crowd gathered there. The melanoma had started as a mole on her arm, then spread. Many of her more incapacitating symptoms resulted from its effect on her brain. Her left side was paralyzed. She was blind and too weak to get out of bed. But Angela still could speak and was by no means helpless. The day she was admitted to the unit, she said firmly, "I know about you hospice people. I don't want any of that spiritual stuff. No prayers, no chaplains. That's not my thing. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God or heaven." The staff respected Angela's position, but her mother found it very difficult. A devout Catholic, she couldn't accept her daughter's rejection of God and the faith she'd been raised in. "All the other kids believe in God and go to church," the mother said. "We don't know what happened with Angela. We raised them all the same, but it never took with her." One dark, chilly February morning, I responded to Angela's call bell. Her mother had spent the night, and she stirred on her cot as I pushed open the door. "Hi, Angela, what can I do for you?" I said. "Did someone come in here to see me?" she said. "I don't think so. I didn't see anyone. It's not even dawn yet. And there's no one around," I said. "Why do you ask?" "I saw an angel." I sat on the bed. "Tell me what happened," I said. "When I woke up, there was an angel sitting in the light from the window," Angela said with a smile on her face. She described feeling very drawn toward this being who exuded warmth, love, and caring. Her mother jumped off the cot. "Angela, it's a sign from God," she said. "Mother, I don't believe in God," Angela said, now exasperated. "That doesn't matter, her mother said. "You've seen God, or at least a messenger from God." "Does it matter who it is?" Angela snapped. "Isn't it enough to know that there's someone so loving and caring waiting for me?" "Angela, what do you think it means?" I asked. "I don't believe in angels or God," she said, "but someone was here with me. Whoever it was loves me and is waiting for me. So it means I won't die alone," she said, the smile returning to her face. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and she put her arms around her daughter. "Darling, it doesn't matter who it is," she said. "I'm just so pleased this happened." Later, outside Angela's room, her mother said, "I know it was either God or an angel, and she insists it can't be. You know how stubborn she can be. But what matters is that this happened. It's not important what we call the person." She had realized her daughter's fear of the loneliness of death was alleviated by the knowledge of that loving presence waiting for her. Dying people may not be upset by encountering presences unseen by others, but such visitations can unsettle family members, friends, and some healthcare professionals. "Now, you know Mother's been dead for years," a son may say to his dying father. "You can't possibly have seen her." Or the response may be, "You must be dreaming. Maybe it's your medicines." These comments don't help. On the contrary, they usually discourage the dying from sharing more of their experiences and may lead to bewilderment. A common misinterpretation of dying people's messages about unseen presences is that they must be hallucinating as a result of medicines. This can lead well-meaning onlookers to suggest potentially disastrous changes in a patient's medication regimen. Oh, okay, now we're moving on to Pete. Before Pete was admitted to the hospice program, his major problem was pain. A large, gruff man, he prided himself on his toughness. "I don't believe in pills," he said. His usual pattern was to resist taking any pain medicine. When his pain increased to the point that he couldn't stand it, he'd take a dose of medicine which wouldn't work because the pain was by then so intense. So he'd take another, sometimes as many as 3 or 4 before getting any relief. The accumulated doses would then make him sleepy and disoriented, which increased his dislike of medicines. When Pete came into our program, we taught him to use small, regular doses of medicine every 4 hours. This brought his pain under control, helping Pete to enjoy 6 months of comfortable time. However, when Pete mentioned to his sister he'd been talking to their brother John, she grew concerned. John had been dead for more than 10 years. A neighbor who was present said Pete was hallucinating as a result of his medicines and urged that he stop taking them. Pete's sister called me. I visited to assess Pete's condition and explained that the medicines were not causing these visions. I suggested that Pete was in fact seeing John. The sister had no difficulty accepting it. John was the oldest. He'd want to keep an eye on his brother, she said, adding that it helped her to know that someone else from the family would be with Pete as he died and afterward. The neighbor's advice could have caused a loss of pain control and brought Pete a great deal of suffering. Sometimes a family decides to withhold information about the death of someone the dying person knows. This impulse to spare someone emotional pain is laudable, but the truth often helps bring peace, not discomfort. Now we're going to move on to Sue, S-U. A dignified Chinese woman, Sue was getting devoted care from her daughter, Lily. Both were Buddhists and very accepting of the mother's terminal status. "I've had a good life for 93 years, she said, and I've been on this earth long enough." She dreamed often of her husband who had died some years before. "I will join him soon," she said. But one day, Sue seemed very puzzled. "Why is my sister with my husband?" she asked. "They are both calling me to come." "Is your sister dead?" I asked. "No, she still lives in China," she said. "I have not seen her for many years." When I related this conversation to the daughter, she was astonished and tearful. "My aunt died 2 days ago in China," Lily said. "We decided not to tell Mother. Her sister had the same kind of cancer. It was a very painful death. She lived in a remote village where good medical care wasn't available. We didn't want to upset or frighten Mother since she is so sick herself." "What do you think about your mother's questioning why she is being called to come by both her sister and your father?" I asked. "Mother tells me that my father has been calling her to be with him for the past week," Lily said. "It gives me comfort to know they will be together again in the next life. So I guess her sister is waiting there for her also," Lily said after much thought. "Do you think the news of her sister's death will upset your mother?" "No, I guess not. They loved each other a great deal. So it'll be wonderful for them all to be together again. I guess I should tell her the truth." When Lily tearfully told her mother about her sister's illness and death, Sue said, with a knowing smile, "Now I understand." Her puzzle solved. She died 3 weeks later, at peace and with a sense of anticipation. The companionship and support these presences provide for a person about to die is evident. But some terminally ill people have these experiences months before their deaths and benefit in a similar way over a longer period of time. Moving on to Peggy. Peggy, a young woman dying of lymphoma that had advanced to the point where she was very weak, slept most of the time, and was sometimes slightly confused. When our colleague arrived for a routine visit, Peggy called out in a strong, clear voice. "Come on up, I'm upstairs," she said. She looked bright, radiant, and was unusually active. "How are you?" the nurse asked. "You look particularly beautiful today." "Let me tell you what happened to me," Peggy said. "I was lying here in bed yesterday, sort of drifting in and out of sleep and remembering back to a happy time in my childhood. My brother and I were taken in by my aunt during a time that my parents were having financial difficulty. I really loved my aunt. She was wonderful, so loving to both of us. It was just a very happy time for me. I still love her a lot. I woke up with a start when I felt a warm, caring hand on my shoulder. I looked around behind me. These things happen to me all the time. This is where I'm taking notes right now as I'm reading. I feel hands on me all the time. I woke up with a start when I felt a warm, caring hand on my shoulder. I looked around behind me, and there was my aunt smiling at me as she touched me. It made me feel so good and safe." "Where is your aunt?" the nurse asked. "She lives in Massachusetts," Peggy said. I haven't seen her in a long time because she's sick. But I felt her with me off and on all day. It made me feel so good. Last night, my uncle called to say she died yesterday. And at the same time, that I was first aware of her being with me. And then today I woke up and she was touching me again." "What a nice experience," the nurse said. "I can see how good it's made you feel. What do you think it means?" "That she'll be there for me when I die," Peggy replied with a radiant smile, "and we'll be together again." Peggy recognized her aunt and said clearly who she saw. Sometimes the communication may be a little less clear. Let's go on to Leona. Leona was semi-conscious and Ray was distraught. "It's so unfair," he said. "She always tried to help other people, and now she can't do anything for herself. She stood by our son Chuck when he had trouble with drugs, and it nearly broke her heart when our daughter Jo Beth died." I asked about Jo Beth. Ray explained that she'd been the light of their lives, smart, well-liked, and the very image of her mother when it came to helping others. When she was still in high school, a deaf family moved into the block. The neighbors were sort of standoffish, but Leona and Jo Beth took a course in sign language so they could talk to the new people. The two of them used to practice their signing all the time. "They bugged me and Chuck to learn too, but all we ever managed were a few easy ones," Ray said, holding up his left hand in gesture. "That means I love you." Jo Beth would tease us that if we wouldn't learn, we couldn't gripe about her and Mom and their secret language. Ray went on to describe how Jo Beth had died. In her freshman year at college in a neighboring state, she'd come down with appendicitis. During emergency surgery, she reacted badly to the anesthesia and her heart stopped. She was resuscitated, but the resulting lack of oxygen damaged her brain, leaving her in a coma like the one that now entrapped Leona. "For weeks, we prayed that she'd wake up and be all right," Ray said. "Finally, she did come out of it, but she couldn't talk or do anything for herself, and she didn't seem to know us. It nearly killed her mother, and her brother kept saying it should have been him. The family sort of came apart. Eventually, we got Jo Beth into a nursing home. She lived another 18 months, but she never got better. Leona visited every day, sitting and talking to Jo Beth as if she could understand. After she died, Leona got involved with a group that works with people in situations like ours. She said she wanted to make something positive out of our pain. Weeks passed. Leona neared death in peace and comfort. Chuck flew in from the West Coast. They sat with Leona and talked to her as she had done so often with a comatose Jo Beth years before. In the moments before her death, Leona seemed to awaken. She opened her eyes and looked past Ray and Chuck, breaking into a radiant smile. She moved her hand, then closed her eyes and died. "Dad, look what she did with her right hand," Chuck said. She signed, "I love you," the way she always did with Jo Beth. The father hugged his son. "They're together again," he said. I got goosebumps. We can best respond to people who experience the presence of someone not alive by expecting it to happen. Such messages usually aren't hard to understand. Often a person will say clearly, "My father was here," or "There's someone warm and caring for me," or "There's if you accept these messages, you can then try to understand that what the person is telling you, rather than looking for other explanations such as medicine, hallucination, or loss of intellectual function. Come on, people, right? Don't argue about what's real. Speak only the truth, but do not try to persuade someone that what he or she is seeing is unreal. Suppose a dying person asks, "Do you know where John is? He was here earlier." Say, "Remember, John died a few years ago." This provides the information you were asked for and sets up the next phase of conversation. But attempting to humor the person with, "Yes, dear, of course, he's in the other room," is condescending and false. A flat denial that John could be present? You can't possibly have seen John. He's been dead for 10 years. That will bewilder the one dying, who may stop trying to communicate with you. No matter what you know to be true, the person has seen John. Won't believe that he hasn't and may wonder why you're trying to talk him out of it. It's also counterproductive to withhold information about another's death. It's a kind thought, but truth often helps bring peace, not discomfort. If you can't comprehend what a dying person means, ask gently. If the person is willing or able to talk about it, you may learn more. The most important thing to remember when a dying person sees someone invisible to you is that death is not lonely. Many people fear that they or someone they love will die alone. In fact, what the stories of these people tell us is that they didn't die alone, and neither will we. Those who have died before us, or some spiritual beings, will be companions on our journey. All right, there we go. Chapter 7. It was a long chapter, huh? Did I talk too much? I think I did. I'm just going to go ahead and end that now. It does make sense to me, all of this. It's amazing. I went, and literally heaven led me to these books. In the sequence that I found these books, it's all bizarre. You know, 1,000 Gifts, the book I was reading, was about your daily life gratitudes, the Eucharistio of life. Final Gifts is about your final dying moments of life and what you need, and wanting anyone who's going to be around you to understand. Just give it to you. Stop trying to control my death. Amazing.